Despite impressive performances that made analysts take notice, Shedeur Sanders is fighting battles far beyond the field. He's not just dodging defenders, he's dodging narratives. Word is, key figures in the Browns front office are quietly circulating negative evaluations, building a case to move on from him in the upcoming draft. And the motive? Pride. These are the same decision-makers who never supported drafting Sanders in the first place, now reportedly angling to replace him with their guy at pick 6. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. What looks like a strategy problem may actually be a case study in sabotage. And while they spin their stories, Sanders keeps doing his job, poised under pressure, delivering wins, playing through breakdowns in protection week after week. The Browns have a rare chance to stop the quarterback carousel and build around a talent who's already shown he can overcome dysfunction. But to do that, they need to silence the noise, shut down the sabotage, and finally start acting like a team with a... The Cleveland Browns quarterback situation has officially gone off the rails. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, who came into the league surrounded by hype and scrutiny, has now found himself at the center of a full-blown internal power struggle. The same franchise that has been desperate for a franchise QB for decades is reportedly preparing to move on from one of the only bright spots on their roster, just months after he started delivering on the exact promise they've been chasing. Sources inside the Browns front office have confirmed that the team is considering drafting a new quarterback with the 6th overall pick, despite Sanders proving himself as a leader, a playmaker, and arguably the best thing to happen to the Browns' offense in years. And no, this isn't about performance. It's about politics, pride, and the old habit of self-sabotage that seems to haunt this organization like clockwork. During his rookie campaign, Shedeur Sanders faced an uphill battle every single week. He was thrown behind what many analysts agree was the worst offensive line in the league. He had limited help at receiver, a shaky run game, and constant pressure in the pocket. Yet, somehow he delivered. He went toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow and came out on top. He outdueled Cam Ward in a game that turned heads across the league. He executed game-winning drives that reminded people why he was seen as a generational leader back in college. There was never a moment when Sanders looked overwhelmed or unprepared. His footwork, his poise under pressure, and his ability to read the field all scream franchise quarterback. The film doesn't lie, and neither do the wins. But apparently, none of that matters to the people pulling the strings behind the... From the beginning, it was clear that the coaching staff and front office weren't fully bought in. Reports have surfaced that Sanders wasn't a preferred pick during the draft process, and that the decision to take him was heavily influenced by ownership. That tension didn't go away. It just simmered in the background until now. With the draft approaching, insiders say there's a push to reset at quarterback, not because Sanders failed, but because admitting they were wrong is a harder pill to swallow than continuing to spiral. The idea of replacing him this early has sparked outrage from fans and raised serious questions about what the Browns actually value in a quarterback. Development, leadership, on-field results, or just control over the narrative. Because when it comes to Shedeur, the numbers show progress, but the internal leaks suggest something more calculated. Ownership, particularly Jimmy Haslam, reportedly had a major role in drafting Sanders. It wasn't purely a football decision. It had branding implications, PR implications, and at the time, felt like a necessary risk. But now, the friction between Haslam and the football operations staff is back in the spotlight. The decision-makers who didn't want Sanders in the first place are pushing to move on, and their motivations seem to have less to do with football and more to do with ego. This isn't a front office operating with unity. It's a fractured leadership team where decisions are being made based on pride and positioning rather than performance. The move to replace Sanders feels like an attempt to rewrite history, to justify old evaluations, and to avoid admitting that the outsider, the player they didn't believe in, is outperforming expectations. Andrew Berry, the Brown GM, has remained silent on the situation publicly. But behind the scenes, several reports suggest his camp is aligned with the coaching staff. This isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a philosophical divide. Sanders represents a challenge to the internal scouting process, and for an organization that's prided itself on analytics and system building, his success exposes gaps they aren't ready to acknowledge. Drafting another quarterback at pick 6 would send a loud and clear message that development doesn't matter in Cleveland. That success on the field can still be overwritten by internal politics. And if that's the case, what's the point of investing in talent at all? The Browns' track record with quarterbacks is already one of the worst in modern football. They've cycled through named systems and saviors with no real plan beyond desperation. From first-round busts to ill-fitting veterans, the pattern has been clear. Quick fixes over long-term vision. Sanders, despite being in a brutal offensive situation, was starting to change that narrative. He brought consistency. He brought hope. And most importantly, he brought wins. Now, with the franchise reportedly eyeing another quarterback, that momentum risks collapsing. It's not just a bad look. It's a potential disaster. Because any new rookie will be walking into the same dysfunction Sanders just started crawling out of. No O-line, no elite receivers, no protection from internal politics. If anything, this situation proves that the problem isn't at quarterback, it's above it. After some of the biggest wins this season, Kevin Stefanski publicly praised Sanders. But those press conference clips now read differently. At the time, they felt like standard coach speak, acknowledging a job well done. But in hindsight, they seem performative, disconnected from the quiet moves being made behind the scenes. If Stefanski and his staff were truly sold on Sanders, there wouldn't be anonymous leaks about drafting his replacement. This coaching staff has never been known for developing young quarterbacks. And when given a chance with someone like Sanders, someone with elite pedigree, mental toughness, and a drive to win, they treated him like a placeholder. That's not just short-sighted. Sanders, for his part, has handled the noise with maturity. In press conferences, he's kept the focus on football. He's owned up to mistakes, credited his teammates, and talked about improvement. There's never been a hint of bitterness, even as stories swirled about his job security. That level of professionalism from a rookie is rare, especially one who's being set up to fail by the very people who should be building around him. He's shown leadership in the locker room and poise under pressure. And despite the narrative being shaped against him, he hasn't lashed out. It's clear that he wants to earn it the right way. But it's also clear that not everyone in the building wants to see him succeed. Interviews, Sanders has never leaned on excuses. When asked about the offensive line, the lack of weapons, or the pressure, he's kept it classy. That resilience is part of what made him stand out. He played through hits, media speculation, and constant doubt, and he kept delivering, outplaying established names, leading drives when it mattered most, winning games he had no business winning. And yet, despite doing everything asked of him, the whispers continue. The headlines are shifting. The spin is intensifying, all to prepare fans for what seems like another rushed, ego-driven quarterback switch, one that doesn't make football sense, but fits the Browns' old playbook of self-destruction. This decision, if it happens, won't just hurt Sanders. It'll hurt the Browns. It signals to the locker room that no amount of performance can overcome internal politics. It tells young players that development won't be rewarded. And it confirms to fans that no matter how promising a player looks, Cleveland's chaos will always win. There's still time to course correct. Ownership backing Sanders is crucial. So, is accountability within the front office. Because if the team lets go of a quarterback who's already overcome more than most veterans face in 5 years, they'll be doing more than repeating history. They'll be burning the blueprint for how to build a contender. If you've been following this saga and want the Browns to stop getting in their own way, drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you're tired of quarterback roulette in Cleveland. And don't forget to subscribe for the next wave of football chaos. We're just getting started. While the rumors swirl and executives whisper, Shedeur Sanders has stayed focused on the field. He's been practicing like a guy whose job depends on it. Because in Cleveland, it always does. Every rep is under a microscope. Every throw becomes a referendum. Not just on him, but on the decision to draft him in the first place. The weight of proving himself daily, especially when your own organization might not want you to succeed, is something few players ever face. Yet Sanders keeps showing up, locked in, studying tape, and doing what's asked, and not just for optics, because he's trying to win. Try to do the one thing Cleveland hasn't been able to do consistently in years. Behind closed doors, the tension between ownership and football ops is reportedly reaching a boiling point. Jimmy Haslam's initial push to draft Sanders wasn't just about football. It was about shifting the image of a franchise known for dysfunction. And now that Sanders has actually lived up to the hype, it's put Haslam in a tough spot. He backed a quarterback that's producing, but the very people he pays to manage the team want a clean slate. Meetings between ownership and management have reportedly grown colder, with conflicting visions on where to go next. And in Cleveland, internal alignment has never been a strength. These aren't philosophical debates. They're power struggles dressed up in scouting jargon. Andrew Berry's front office operates with a sense of structure, but when that structure is built on being right at all costs, it leaves no room for players like Sanders to surprise you. His breakout isn't being celebrated. It's being explained away. Critics inside the building point to scheme fit or long-term ceiling as reasons to look elsewhere, but none of those arguments hold up when you actually look at the tape. Berry's silence speaks volumes. In a situation this loud, choosing not to publicly back your starting quarterback reads like a signal, one that says a decision's already been made, and the rest is just PR cleanup. If Sanders gets replaced, it won't be because he failed. It'll be because the front office couldn't admit he succeeded. There's no hiding from the highlights. The footage from Sanders' key performances this season tells a story that management may not want to hear. The pocket collapses, but he escapes. The coverage breaks down, and he finds a target. The game's on the line, and he delivers. These aren't isolated flashes. They're part of a pattern. And those clips have made their rounds. Analysts have praised his calm under fire. Former players have pointed out his toughness. And fans? They've seen what a real QB looks like. It's made the calls to replace him seem more and more disconnected from reality. When you got a rookie doing all this with no help, the problem isn't him. It's who's protecting him, both on the line and in the front. Kevin Stefanski's latest comments on Sanders have been vague. Even when asked directly, he'll mention competition at all positions and evaluating every option, but he stops short of endorsing his quarterback. That might be a coach trying to keep leverage, or it might be a coach already prepping for a change he's been pushing behind the scenes. Either way, the indecisiveness is doing damage. Teams rally around clarity. Quarterbacks lead best when they know the building is behind them. And right now, Sanders is leading a team that won't even say he's the guy. It's a move that undercuts everything they're trying to build and shows why Cleveland can't keep quarterbacks for more than a few seasons. In training camp, it was obvious to anyone paying attention that Sanders brought something different. He had command. He studied the playbook like a veteran. His mechanics were sharp, and he adjusted quickly to the speed of the game. The defense respected him early. So did the veterans. None of that came from luck. Sanders earned every rep, and he wasn't given any shortcuts. In fact, many thought he'd be benched early in the season if the offense stalled. Instead, he weathered the storm. He improved week by week. And by mid-season, there was no longer any real debate. He was the best option the Browns had. That's what makes the draft rumors feel less like strategy and more like sabotage. Has been a constant in a franchise known for chaos. Coaches have come and gone. So have GMs. But Haslam is still there, watching his investment get pulled in different directions. He wanted Sanders. Now he's facing a front office that wants to undo that choice. Whether Haslam doubles down or backs off could define the next 5 years. If he forces the organization to commit to Sanders and fix the issues around him, there's still hope. But if he caves to the internal noise and lets them reset again, the Browns will be right back where they started. Another rookie, another rebuild, and another round of what if. The pattern is almost formulaic at this point. Draft a quarterback. Blame the supporting cast. Fire the coach. Start over. For Browns fans, it's exhausting. Sanders was supposed to be the break in that cycle, and he's shown every sign that he could be. But now, the team looks ready to follow the script again. Throw out the potential and chase a new headline. The NFL isn't kind to teams that waste talent. And in this case, the Browns aren't just risking Sanders' future. They're risking their own. The locker room sees it. The players know when someone's being set up to fail. And once that trust breaks, it's almost impossible to rebuild. That's not just a quarterback issue. That's a culture issue. In post-game interviews, Sanders keeps it diplomatic. Win or lose, he deflects credit to his teammates. He talks about execution, about learning, about staying the course. It's everything you want in a leader, and everything you lose when you prioritize office politics over on-field production. He's been hit more than most rookies, sacked at a ridiculous rate, but he doesn't whine. He owns it. That mindset isn't common in young quarterbacks. It's developed under pressure, the kind that either breaks you or shapes you. Sanders has clearly been shaped by it, and that resilience is what makes the idea of giving up on him so backwards. If the Browns move on from Sanders, they're not just benching a quarterback. They're telling on themselves. They're admitting they can't handle being wrong, that they'd rather hit reset than build something sustainable. That pride is more valuable than progress. The rest of the league is watching. Other teams see the talent. They see the grit. And if Sanders ends up somewhere else, don't be surprised when he starts winning. Because the traits he's shown, the ability to lead, the refusal to fold, the poise under fire, those are the exact things every struggling team is looking for. Cleveland has that. For now. So what comes next isn't just about the draft. It's about whether the Browns are ready to stop tripping over their own egos and actually commit to winning. Andrew Berry is no stranger to public pressure, but what makes this situation different is how obvious the stakes have become. It's not just fans begging the Browns to stay the course. It's analysts, former players, even rival execs reportedly questioning why Cleveland would blow up something that's starting to work. Sanders didn't flash in garbage time. He performed in tight games, against real opponents. And yet, Berry still hasn't addressed the elephant in the room. The leaks continue. The draft smoke gets heavier. And the silence from the GM's office sounds less like strategy and more like surrender. If the front office was aligned, this story would have been shut down already. Instead, it's growing. And so is the disconnect between those inside the building and everyone watching from the outside. Kevin Stefanski's role in this mess can't be overlooked. His tenure has been defined by cautious game plans, conservative decisions, and a noticeable lack of trust in young quarterbacks. Sanders challenged that model. He extended plays, took shots downfield, gave the offense an identity. But instead of embracing that evolution, Stefanski pulled back. And when things got tight, when Sanders proved he could hang, the support didn't scale. It plateaued. The praise became passive. The playbook got tighter. It's as if the staff was more comfortable managing expectations than meeting them. Because with Sanders excelling, the pressure shifted from him to them. And rather than rising to it, they backed. Sanders hasn't slipped once in front of the mic. He knows what's going on. He hears the rumors. He's asked the same questions every week with slightly different phrasing. Are you the long-term starter? Have the coaches said anything? Do you think the Browns should draft a quarterback? Every time, he stays locked in, focused on the next game, the next throw, but you can read between the lines. There's frustration, yes, but there's also restraint. He's not lashing out. He's not pointing fingers. That level of composure, especially when your position is being openly shot behind your back, says more than any stat line ever could. In one of his recent interviews, Sanders said, "I just control what I can control." It's a canned phrase in pro sports, but coming from him, it felt earned, because he has controlled what he could. He's played smart, played tough, outplayed expectations. He's done his job while the people around him seem determined to complicate it. And yet, there's only so long a player can carry both the offense and the politics. The message from Sanders has always been clear. Give me a chance and I'll prove it. The message from the organization? We're still thinking about it. That's not indecision. That's disrespect. The Browns have tried everything else. Big-armed first-rounders, short-term veterans, desperate midseason trades. Sanders is the first quarterback in years who looks like he could give them consistency on a rookie contract, no less. And this is how they respond? By planning his exit before year 2? It's like watching a team break up a success because they didn't recognize it in the mirror. The franchise has begged for a face of the franchise QB. But now that one's here, the reaction is to question it, to spin it, to hedge. It's the kind of dysfunction that makes fans numb, and it's the exact pattern that's kept the Browns stuck in the same cycle for decades. And Andrew Berry aren't just disagreeing on a player, they're disagreeing on a direction. Haslam wants impact, Berry wants process. That divide worked when the results were abstract, but now that Sanders is delivering, the split is clear. Haslam reportedly still supports Sanders. Berry wants his guy, and caught in the middle is a young quarterback who's just trying to play football. This isn't a system built to support him. It's a system built to prove points. The longer the tug-of-war continues, the more damage is done, not just to Sanders, but to the credibility of the entire organization. At some point, one side has to win, and if it's not the one backing talent, the Browns lose. Every quarterback has a window, a moment where the support around them either launches their career or lets it collapse. For Sanders, that window is now, and the people making decisions have to ask themselves, is this really the hill worth dying on? Are you going to throw away a quarterback who's battled through one of the worst supporting casts in the league just because he wasn't your pick? Because, make no mistake, he's shown enough, more than enough. And if Cleveland gives up on him now, they're not just resetting a position. They're confirming the worst fears of every fan who's watched this franchise eat its young for 2 decades. There's still a way out. Stefanski and Berry could come out publicly and say Sanders is their guy. They could spend that number 6 pick on offensive line help. They could reinforce the wide receiver room, build a system around Sanders' strengths, and actually commit to the quarterback they already have. But that would mean putting egos aside. That would mean admitting he earned it. And in Cleveland, that might be the biggest challenge of all. If you're tired of watching quarterbacks get thrown away before they're developed, if you believe Shedeur deserves the same support other rookie QBs get across the league, let your voice be heard. Drop a comment. Hit like. Subscribe if you're done watching this team chase ghosts. Because whether they see it or not, the Browns already have their quarterback. Now they just have to act like it.